Come back to channel. Before you spend these Kennedy half dollars, check them first. The 1776 1976 bicentennial and 1998 D Kennedy half dollar may look like ordinary 50-cent coins, but their mint marks, condition, silver versions, or genuine errors can make them much more interesting to collectors. Stay until the end. One detail could surprise you. The coin won. If you have a 1776 1976 Kennedy half dollar sitting in an old coin jar, family collection, drawer, or box, don't spend it just because it says 50 cents. This unusual coin was created for one of the biggest celebrations in American history, the 200th anniversary of the United States. At first glance, it may look like an ordinary Kennedy half dollar, but there are important details that can make one example more interesting to collectors than another. The mint mark, composition, condition, finish, and any genuine mint-made error can all matter. And before you believe any huge price claim, remember this: most 1776 1976 Kennedy half dollars are not worth a fortune. The real excitement comes from knowing exactly which version you have and what makes it special. The story begins with the Kennedy half dollar itself. The denomination was introduced in 1964, shortly after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. His portrait was placed on the obverse of the new half dollar, while the reverse carried the presidential seal. The coin quickly became one of the most recognizable pieces of American currency. For generations, Americans have saved Kennedy half dollars in collections, albums, drawers, and family keepsakes, even though the denomination became less common in everyday transactions. More than a decade later, the United States was preparing for its bicentennial celebration. The year 1976 would mark 200 years since the Declaration of Independence. To celebrate that historic occasion, the United States Mint created special designs for the quarter, half dollar, and dollar. Instead of showing only 1 year, these coins carried the dual date 1776 1976, connecting the nation's founding era with its 200th anniversary. That dual date is the first thing that makes this Kennedy half dollar stand out. When you hold the coin, you're looking at two dates that represent 2 centuries of American history. The first date, 1776, points back to the birth of the United States as an independent nation. The second, 1976, represents the bicentennial celebration. Together, they turn an ordinary-looking date into a miniature historical timeline. The reverse design was also changed for the bicentennial issue. Instead of the traditional presidential seal, the coin features Independence Hall. The building was an appropriate choice because of its connection to the founding of the United States and the events surrounding American independence. The design helped turn the circulating half dollar into a national celebration piece. Now here's where coin collectors need to pay attention. Not every 1776 1976 Kennedy half dollar is exactly the same. Different versions were produced, including regular copper-nickel-clad pieces and special collector versions containing silver. There were also coins produced with different finishes and at different mint facilities. That means simply finding the dual date isn't enough to determine the coin's value. The first step is to check the mint mark. Depending on the issue, you may find a small letter identifying the mint facility that produced the coin. Look carefully around the area near the date and design details rather than assuming every bicentennial half dollar is identical. A tiny mint mark can help you identify which version you're examining. The next thing to understand is composition. This is extremely important because some bicentennial Kennedy half dollars were made for normal circulation using copper-nickel-clad construction, while special collector versions were produced with silver. If you find a coin that appears unusual, don't rely only on its color or shine to determine whether it contains silver. Proper identification of the specific issue is much safer than guessing. This is also where many online videos and headlines can become confusing. You may see someone claiming that a 1776 1976 Kennedy half dollar is automatically worth thousands or even millions. Don't assume that claim applies to every coin with the same date. Extraordinary auction prices, rare errors, and exceptional specimens are not the same thing as an ordinary circulated example. A common coin should never be valued simply because another, completely different specimen sold for a high price. Condition is one of the biggest reasons two coins with the same date can have different collector appeal. Imagine one Kennedy $50 that spent years in pockets, cash registers, and coin machines. Its surfaces may contain scratches, contact marks, and dull areas. Now imagine another example that was carefully preserved and still has strong details, attractive surfaces, and original mint luster. The second coin may be much more desirable to collectors. Professional grading becomes especially important when a coin appears to be in exceptional condition. Grading specialists examine the surfaces, strike, wear, luster, and overall preservation before assigning a grade. At high grades, even tiny marks can matter. A coin that looks perfect from a distance may show contact marks under magnification, while an exceptionally preserved example can stand out immediately. And there is one mistake you should avoid completely. Don't clean your Kennedy $50. If the coin looks dirty, dark, or dull, don't use polish, chemicals, toothpaste, or a rough cloth to make it shine. Cleaning can permanently damage the surface and may reduce collector appeal. Original surfaces are important, and an old coin does not need to look brand new to be interesting. Instead, hold the coin by its edges and examine it carefully under good lighting. Look at Kennedy's portrait on the front. Check the lettering and the fields surrounding the design. Then turn it over and study Independence Hall. Look for unusual marks, strong details, and signs of wear. The goal isn't to make the coin shiny. The goal is to understand what you actually have. Another exciting possibility is a genuine mint error. Coins are manufactured using dies, planchets, presses, and carefully controlled production processes. Occasionally, something goes wrong during manufacture. A legitimate error can create an unusual coin that collectors may find interesting. But remember that damage is not the same as an error. A scratch from another coin, a dent from being dropped, corrosion, discoloration, or damage caused after the coin left the mint does not automatically make a rare error. A genuine mint error must be connected to the manufacturing process. If you think your coin has something unusual, authentication is the safest way to determine what you're seeing. The bicentennial Kennedy $50 also has an important place in American history. Imagine the atmosphere of 1976. The United States was celebrating 200 years of independence. Communities held parades, festivals, historical events, exhibitions, and patriotic celebrations. The bicentennial coins became part of that nationwide celebration and were placed into the hands of ordinary Americans. Some of these coins were spent, others were saved immediately, some were placed in albums and forgotten, others were passed from parents to children. Decades later, many are still sitting in homes across America. That's why discovering one can be exciting even when it turns out to be a common example. You're holding something directly connected to a major American anniversary. The Kennedy $50 also represents the changing role of coins in everyday life. $50 once circulated much more frequently, but over time, they became less common in ordinary transactions. Many people today can go years without receiving one in change. That scarcity in everyday experience makes the discovery of an old Kennedy $50 feel special, even when its collector value is modest. If you're checking your own 1976 Kennedy $50, start with identification. Confirm the dual date. Locate the mint mark. Determine which type of issue you have. Consider whether it is a regular circulation coin or a special collector version. Then examine the condition. Finally, look carefully for anything that could represent a genuine variety or mint error. If your coin appears to be an exceptional specimen, don't rush to sell it based on a random price you saw online. Take clear photographs, compare it with authenticated examples, and consider having it examined by a reputable coin professional. If the coin is genuinely rare, proper authentication can be extremely important because valuable coins can attract counterfeits, altered pieces, and exaggerated claims. One of the most interesting things about the 1976 Kennedy $50 is that its story is bigger than its denomination. 50 cents is simply the face value printed into the design. The historical value, collector interest, and potential market value depend on the individual coin. That's why knowledgeable collectors don't simply ask, "How old is it?" They ask, "Which version is it? How well preserved is it? What is its composition? Does it have a recognized variety or genuine error? And how does it compare with other authenticated examples?" That mindset can completely change the way you look at old coins. Instead of seeing a pile of random change, you start seeing clues. A tiny mint mark becomes important. A sharp design becomes important. Original surfaces become important. Even the absence of a particular feature can help identify a coin. And that's the real secret behind successful coin hunting. It's not believing that every old coin is a hidden millionaire maker. It's learning how to recognize the unusual examples among the ordinary ones. So if you have a 1976 Kennedy half-dollar, don't throw it back into a drawer without checking it. Take a moment, look at the dual date, check the mint mark, consider the composition, study both sides, examine the condition, and never clean it just because it looks old. You might have a normal bicentennial half-dollar, and that's perfectly fine. It's still a fascinating piece of American history. But if your coin has an unusual composition, exceptional preservation, or a legitimate mint-made error, it may deserve a much closer examination. The greatest mistake would be to look at the coin for only a few seconds and assume you already know its story. This little half-dollar was made for America's 200th anniversary, traveled through decades of history, and may have passed through countless hands before reaching you. So before you spend that 1976 Kennedy half-dollar, check it carefully. Don't clean it. Don't rely on sensational price claims. Learn what version you have and understand the characteristics collectors actually care about. Because the real excitement isn't simply finding a coin with a huge price tag. The excitement is discovering something unusual, understanding why it matters, and realizing that a small piece of metal can carry an enormous piece of American history. And that is exactly why the 1976 Kennedy half-dollar deserves a second look. The second coin. The 1998 D Kennedy half-dollar. Stop for a moment and take a closer look. To most people, it may look like an ordinary 50-cent coin, but collectors know that the date, Denver mint mark, condition, strike quality, and any genuine mint-made error can make one example more interesting than another. The important thing is not to assume that every 1998 D Kennedy half-dollar is extremely rare or worth a fortune. Instead, the real treasure hunt is finding an example with exceptional preservation or an unusual characteristic that separates it from ordinary coins. The Kennedy half-dollar has one of the strongest stories in modern American coinage. The denomination was introduced in 1964, only months after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. The United States Mint placed Kennedy's portrait on the obverse, creating a coin that immediately became connected with one of the most emotional moments in American history. On the reverse is the presidential seal, with an eagle surrounded by stars. The design has remained recognizable for generations, and has made the Kennedy half-dollar one of the most collected modern United States coins. By the time we reached 1998, the Kennedy half-dollar had already been part of American coinage for more than 3 decades. The country had changed dramatically since the coin's introduction, but Kennedy's portrait remained on the half-dollar. The 1998 D issue was produced at the Denver Mint, and the small D mint mark is one of the first details you should check when examining your coin. That tiny letter can make a big difference when identifying an old United States coin. A 1998 Kennedy half-dollar without the same mint mark may represent a different mint issue, while the D identifies the Denver production. So if you have a 1998 Kennedy half-dollar, don't simply look at the date and put it away. Look carefully around the area where the mint mark should appear and confirm that you're dealing with the 1998 D issue. Now comes the most important part. Value is not determined by the date alone. A 1998 D Kennedy half-dollar is not automatically a rare or million-dollar coin. Large numbers of modern Kennedy half-dollars were produced, and ordinary circulated examples generally do not command extraordinary prices. The coins that attract greater collector attention are usually examples with strong preservation, unusual varieties, genuine errors, or other characteristics that make them stand out. Condition is especially important for a coin from this period. Think about two 1998 D. Kennedy half-dollars sitting side by side. One has spent years being handled, stored loosely with other coins, and moved through circulation. Its surfaces may show scratches, contact marks, dull areas, and general wear. The other has been carefully preserved and still shows strong details and attractive original surfaces. Even though the date and mint mark are identical, collectors may view these coins very differently. This is why professional grading can matter. A grading service examines the coin's preservation, strike, surfaces, luster, and other characteristics before assigning a numerical grade. When a coin reaches very high grades, small imperfections can become important. A tiny contact mark that you barely notice may affect the final grade, while a well-preserved example can become much more desirable to collectors. If you find a 1998 D. Kennedy half-dollar that looks unusually sharp and clean, resist the temptation to polish it. This is one of the biggest mistakes inexperienced collectors make. A coin may look dirty or dull simply because of age, storage, or natural surface changes. Cleaning it with a cloth, polish, chemicals, or household products can permanently damage the surface. A naturally preserved coin is generally far more useful to collectors than a coin that has been aggressively cleaned. So if your 1998 D. Kennedy half-dollar looks unusual, simply protect it and examine it carefully. Hold it by the edges and avoid touching the main surfaces unnecessarily. Another thing that can make a 1998 D. Kennedy half-dollar interesting is a genuine mint error. Coins are produced through a complex manufacturing process involving planchets, dies, presses, and multiple stages of inspection. Mistakes can occasionally happen. An authentic mint error may attract collector attention because it represents an unusual event during production. But be careful, not every strange-looking coin is an error. A scratch, dent, gouge, discoloration, or damage caused after the coin left the mint is not automatically valuable. Many damaged coins look unusual, but that does not make them rare. A true mint error should show characteristics that can be connected to the manufacturing process. If you think your 1998 D. Kennedy half-dollar has an unusual feature, don't immediately announce that you've found a rare fortune. First, compare the feature with known examples, and if necessary, seek professional authentication. This is particularly important when dealing with potentially valuable errors because altered or damaged coins can sometimes be mistaken for genuine mint mistakes. Another factor collectors consider is strike quality. A coin can be produced in large numbers while still having differences in how sharply the design appears. Examine Kennedy's hair, facial details, lettering, and the open fields around the portrait. Then turn the coin over and study the eagle and surrounding details. Strong definition combined with excellent preservation can make an example more attractive. The reverse design itself has a fascinating story. The presidential seal features an eagle holding an olive branch and arrows, representing peace and readiness to defend the nation. Above the eagle are stars representing the states of the Union. This imagery gives the Kennedy half-dollar a distinctly American character and helps explain why collectors continue to enjoy the series. By 1998, these coins were no longer being used as frequently in everyday transactions as many smaller denominations. Kennedy half-dollars became more commonly associated with banks, collectors, coin rolls, family collections, and special occasions. That means a 1998 D coin may have spent much of its life sitting safely in a collection, or it may have circulated and picked up marks along the way. That history can make two seemingly identical coins very different today. One might show decades of handling, while another may have remained protected almost from the day it was struck. For collectors, that difference matters. And here's something every coin hunter should remember when watching videos about valuable coins. Don't confuse an extraordinary auction result with the normal value of an ordinary example. A rare error or an exceptionally high-grade coin can sometimes bring strong prices, but that doesn't mean every coin carrying the same date is worth thousands or millions. The exact characteristics of the individual coin matter. So if you see a dramatic headline saying a 1998 D. Kennedy $50 can make you rich overnight, slow down and inspect the actual evidence. Ask what variety is being discussed. What grade was the coin? Was it authenticated? Was the price for a normal circulated coin or an exceptional specimen? These questions can protect you from unrealistic expectations. If you have one at home, start with a simple inspection. Confirm that the date is 1998. Check for the D mint mark. Examine the coin's overall condition. Look for scratches and wear. Check whether the surfaces appear original. Study the strike. Then look carefully for anything that might represent a genuine mint-made error. If your coin appears to be in exceptional condition, keep it protected. A proper coin holder can help prevent unnecessary contact and environmental damage. Avoid loose storage where coins rub against one another. And most importantly, don't clean the coin. The fascinating thing about the Kennedy $50 is that its value isn't just about money. The coin represents a continuing piece of American history. From its introduction after the tragedy of 1963 to the many decades that followed, the Kennedy $50 has remained a recognizable symbol in United States coinage. The 1998 D issue is one small chapter in that larger story. It was struck at the Denver Mint during a period when the United States was approaching the end of the 20th century. Technology was changing rapidly, the economy was evolving, and everyday American life looked very different from the era when the Kennedy $50 was first introduced. Yet Kennedy's portrait remained unchanged on the front of the coin. That's what makes collecting these pieces so interesting. A 1998 D. Kennedy $50 isn't simply a piece of metal with a denomination stamped on it. It's a snapshot of a particular moment in American coinage. And if you are searching through old collections or rolls of $50, the most important thing you can have is patience. Don't rush. Don't judge a coin by its appearance alone. Don't assume a scratch is an error. Don't assume an old-looking surface means the coin is rare. Learn the difference between ordinary wear, environmental damage, varieties, and genuine mint errors. If your 1998 D. Kennedy $50 turns out to be a normal circulated example, don't be disappointed. It is still part of a fascinating series that collectors have enjoyed for generations. But if you discover a beautifully preserved example or a legitimate unusual feature, then you may have a coin that deserves further research. The real excitement of coin collecting comes from that moment of discovery. You look at a coin that everyone else might ignore, notice a tiny detail, and suddenly realize that there is much more to the story. So before you spend that 1998 D. Kennedy $50, take a few seconds and inspect it. Check the date. Check the Denver Mint mark. Look at the condition. Study both sides. Watch for genuine varieties and mint errors, and never clean a potentially collectible coin. You may not have $1 million coin, and most people won't, but you could have an unusually preserved or otherwise interesting example that deserves a closer look. Because the real secret isn't believing that every Kennedy $50 is a hidden fortune. The real secret is knowing what to look for. And sometimes, the smallest detail on a 50-cent coin is exactly what turns an ordinary piece of change into a fascinating collectible.